On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use, welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 Tailgate Party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 85, created October 1st, 2024. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen, and good evening. Tonight from Urban Growler, I'm having the barrel-aged Imperial Chocolate Stout.
We are playing in Los Angeles this week, and one of the great bands to come out of Los Angeles is Black Flag, a band that influenced John and me, especially in our youth, especially in 8th and 9th grade, and I'm having a Black Flag flagship IPA.
Good choice, Neil. I'm very Wisconsin tonight. I have a Corbel Brandy Old Fashioned Sweet. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcast as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. This week, we're talking about Week 4 and the Minnesota Vikings coming to Green Bay for a gold package game, a final score 31-29. There was still tailgating in Green Bay. We'll talk about that. And we have a guest for this week. As the Packers head to Los Angeles, we have a guest who lives in Southern California. She was at the home opener. We'll be at the Rams game as well. And we'll talk with our friend Cecilia all about Packer fandom. Lots of things to unwrap, though, in this Minnesota Vikings game. Lots of crazy stat lines. Neil, I know you just want to get it off your chest. So go.
John, are we going positive or negative here? Because, first of all, I made a list of fuck-ups, and it went on to 2 pages as far as our fuck-ups are concerned. Are we taking the positive view of this game or the negative view of this game?
You made Jeff take a drink with those 2 pages. You may as well start there.
I'm going to actually go in the positive direction because we're positive people. It's better to be positive in this life. And Jordan Love obviously was back for the first time after missing the previous 2 games. And obviously, as we talked about, the MCL injury is something that is a significant injury. And the biggest problem is that you have this lack of confidence. And the evolution of Jordan Love over this game, from that first half where he was not stepping into his throws, where he wasn't sure where he was going to go, where a lot of the throws were too high or too low, to that second half where he clearly became the Jordan Love of the end of last year, was a major part of the game. And why, even though we lost by 2 points, and there were a lot of dumb reasons why we lost by 2 points, I'm really excited about where this game points us towards in the upcoming weeks.
As long as we're staying positive, let's talk about the asshats, not the field goal kickers. How about that punter? Huh? Yeah. He turned the game for us.
Daniel Whelan, arguably the MVP of at least the first half of that game, if not the rest of the game. And anytime your kicker's averaging 60 yards, that's good. Really critical as far as that muffed punt. I guess we can talk about kickers first, but I mean, let's go to Jordan Love and Jaden Reed. Can we talk about them? Because they were really fun to watch.
It really is a tale of 2 halves, right? I mean, and that punt is really a turning point there. Packers are down 28-0, and they get a score going into halftime. They're going to get the ball back to start the second half. There was definitely a feel of a momentum change in the crowd and in the people watching it at home. Jeff, you're right. It's a great play. It's certainly something that was key, but jeepers, if we have to rely on our punter to make a key play for us, I don't want to go through the rest of this season that way. I want my quarterback and my receiver to just bury some fucking defenses and let's win some games with a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, to Neil's point, Jordan Love looked very tentative in the beginning. And let's face it, our defense didn't really do anything at all to help us out early on either. The dropped interception, boy, the game could have been so much different had that interception not been dropped on the first series. But you know what? We're focusing on positive, so let's stay positive. Neil, give us some more positive news.
Jordan Love in the second half of that game, 20 of 30 for 271 yards and 3 touchdowns. 202 yards passing in the fourth quarter alone, with 3 touchdowns in that fourth quarter of that game. Wow.
That's a decent stat line for a whole game for some guys. Mm-hmm. And that's just in a half.
He clearly got comfortable finally, and the receivers mercifully started catching the ball.
Yeah.
we'll skip off on the dropping part, but oh my word. Let's continue with those receivers. And Jaden Reed in the second half with 92 yards receiving. We had a touchdown from Kraft. We had 2 touchdowns from Dontavian Wicks, who struggled at the beginning, but definitely found his pace as the game went on. And given that Watson looks like he might be injured for a few weeks, we need Dontavian Wicks to find his pace.
Well, Wicks couldn't catch a cold. And this is something that's a testament to your quarterback and a testament to your system, right? If the guy who should be your number one receiver has missed 8 targets, are you really going to go for him for 5 more? And in this case, Jordan Love did, because these guys trust each other. Everybody had a bad first half. Let's just not even sugarcoat it. The kicker had a bad first half, the quarterback, the defense, the receivers. We know it was a bad first half. They figured it out at halftime. This is a team that needs to make those adjustments pre-halftime or figure it out at the start of the game. Again, we can't have this every week.
Yes, but at least there were some changes after halftime. Now, for the most part, they were positive changes. So was it that the Vikings maybe took, let up a little bit? Or was it the Packers just made some substantive changes, pulled their head out of their ass, and suddenly
the Packers didn't do as much of this in the second half. More than 8. These are all the fuck ups from just the first half. It's that we found ourselves more in the second half, and there were a lot of opportunities in the first half where things could have very easily gone differently. You mentioned the interception drop, but there were a number of other plays that were very similar. And let's continue on this positive trend. The Packers outgained the Vikings 465 to 374 in the game. We outgained them in passing yards, 379 to 254. We were 4 of 5 in the red zone compared to 3 and 5 for the Vikings. And we had more first downs, 24 to 22 versus the Vikings. If you look at every statistic except the one that matters, we had the better game. Unfortunately, we can't do that, but I would say there were a lot of reasons to be positive, most importantly, because again, Jordan Love was coming back from that MCL injury, and he was not confident clearly in his ability to plant in the first half. He forgot about that essentially in that second half and just played like Jordan Love.
To those people who said that he came back maybe too early, I disagree. I think he was just rusty. And I think he needed to get comfortable, get confident that the knee wasn't going to give out. And clearly that happens after halftime or even kind of in the second quarter, but really once he got rolling. And I just want to, yes, the second half was great, but 5 plays, 96 yards in 82 seconds to set up a possible go-ahead onside kick. I mean, but think about that. The Vikings, this was a close game at this point. The Vikings are, I guess they're trying to prevent to not win. But 5 plays, to your point, 86 yards. 86.
Yeah, to your point earlier, a little bit of both. I mean, when a team goes up 28 points, they're going to become complacent. No matter, there's no amount of coaching that's going to keep you up there. A player's brain is going to take that level down. They were comfortable with that 28-point lead. So now we look at Jordan Love, 389 yards passing and one time sacked on effectively a bum knee. So this is a team that, did you guys feel shades of the Saints game from last year and the comeback in that? I mean, this would have been one of the most epic comebacks in league history, not just Packer history, down 28 points. And even still, they outscore the Vikings 29-3 after being down 28-0. There are, Neil, like you said, there's so much positive to take out of this game that I think it's beef Swellington the more you think about the first quarter and a half of this game, right?
It is, but I want to emphasize what Jeff said, that absolutely, if Jordan Love is coming back against the Rams, I think his first half against the Rams is going to be tough as well. And I think now this Packers team is ready for a Rams team that is very vulnerable. They're going to be ready to attack. They know that they had the opportunity to win that game against the Vikings, and they're going to be hungry against the Rams to win out on the West Coast.
And that's exactly it. The Vikings are a good team. And for not showing up for a half, but really showing the Vikings who they were in the second half, Vikings are 4-0. Everybody's got them near the top of the league. But you know what? this was a close and exciting game. And it showed not only the Packers' strengths, but also the Vikings' vulnerabilities. But it was just a little bit too little, too late.
And a team that I believe in preseason betting had their over-under set at 4.5 wins, has 4 wins right now. And I asked this previously, Jeff. I am sure living in the Twin Cities that Vikings fans are insufferable. How much more insufferable would they have been had JJ McCarthy been the quarterback doing this? For how much controversy there was in the draft in the first round, who got the right quarterback? Jaden Daniels is doing a great job in Washington. We're seeing Caleb Williams not do so well. If they could have done the same thing with JJ McCarthy, I just don't think we ever would have heard the end of it. So let's just think that we've got it the way it is right now, and let the Vikings fans do what they need to do, because they still have an empty trophy case.
Do you think that the Vikings fans actually give a shit about that? They're ecstatic. They're, with the Chiefs as the best team in the NFL by consensus, despite a lot of obvious weaknesses. Yes, we know that they have a lot of weaknesses. They, of course, are completely blind to all of their weaknesses, and God bless them, because it's going to make it even better when they fall and collapse later in the season. Because
they have the 4 statistics that matter more than anything else. They have the 4 wins. Good for them. There's still 13 games left in this season.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the positives now, and there were a lot of positive takeaways, but inevitably, on the other side of that coin, Neil, I'm guessing you've got a few negatives to talk about as well.
Well, let's just start out with the fact that whenever the Vikings needed to move the ball, it seemed that they were able to move the ball. There were a lot of opportunities where the Packers defense, in theory, could have stopped them on a 3rd and long. And all of a sudden, they sent it to Jefferson, they sent it to Addison, they sent it to somebody else. Their ability to sustain drives in those first 2 quarters was incredible. And it's reflected in the fact that Sam Darnold overall was 20 of 28, 275 yards, 9.8 yards per attempt, 123.4 quarterback rating. And just looking at that first quarter, the Vikings had 132 yards of offense in that first quarter alone.
That first quarter was not the Jeff Hafley defense that we have been promised. And something was just off that entire first quarter. They just looked so lackadaisical, like they weren't ready. And so much has been pointed out. Rashawn Gary not getting home, and our line just not stuffing like they should be doing. The cornerbacks, we were down Jair Alexander, just having a rough day in the backfield, but something clicked eventually. Like I said, they made the adjustment. Why aren't they making the adjustments sooner?
Well, they also were shooting themselves in their feet, and the Vikings went up 7-0 on that first drive. We should have come back and gotten at least a field goal, missing a 37-yard field goal. I'll get into those fuck-ups later. But on the Vikings' second drive, a central element of that second drive was the Packers' defense, not just allowing those big plays, but then having those penalties that gave the Vikings additional first downs. And the Vikings in the first quarter had 9 first downs. 3 of those first downs were because of penalties, and that second drive was central to that. We had a face mask. We had Wyatt being offsides. We had Stokes with the defensive holding, and we had Nixon with the defensive holding. 4 penalties on that second drive that allowed the Vikings to go up 14-0. And if the defense is playing cleaner football, this might be a very, very different game.
Yeah, certainly to start out, they were just so discombobulated. But I think the bigger question or concern that I have about the front line is that the fact that the Packers are getting some pressure, they're just not getting the QB hits and the pressures they need to get. It looked like they could have rattled Sam Darnold here, but they didn't. And he kept standing in the pocket and throwing the ball. They weren't getting him to move. They weren't getting him to get happy feet or see ghosts or whatever. They couldn't rattle him to get that pressure. They were just it was almost like the prevent defense again, preventing a win. They were just letting Sam Darnold, of all people, pick him apart.
Well, let's compare the big defensive numbers for the Vikings versus the Packers. The Packers only had 3 quarterback hits in the entire game. They only had 2 passes defended. So I think that we can't put all of the blame on that front 4. The back 5 was also having problems making connections. The 2 passes defense and 3 quarterback hits for the Packers compares to 12 passes defensed for the Vikings in that game and 10 quarterback hits for the Vikings in that game. There was just a difference as far as the ability to get to the quarterback between those 2 teams, and this impacted everybody on the entire defense.
And this is a Packers offensive line that had done through the first 3 games pretty darn well. They kept the quarterback from getting hit. But yeah, this game, things sort of changed a little bit. Now they only allowed the 1 sack, but still 10 quarterback hits is way too many on your quarterback that's coming off an MCL and keeping him out of harm's way.
I mean, I think the other way you could look at that, though, is that clearly they were trying to make plays. And the later the game went on, the more important it was to try to make plays. And I think that it clearly was a decision to go with a different game plan than we did with Malik Willis, that, okay, we're going to allow our quarterback to try to make plays. And there's going to be a risk with that. But in the long term, and I think this is what we talked about already in this episode, is that long-term impact of Sunday's game planning that is going to have the big difference. And clearly they are thinking in the long term with how they went about that game. And maybe they could have been a bit more pragmatic about certain elements of the game, but nonetheless, they are thinking long term. And I think that that is why I wanted to go positive first, because I think that for a 2-point loss, we were down 21 points at halftime, where we looked overmatched for basically the entire first half. This is a game that I came out of positively.
Agreed. Absolutely. And there were a few other things of note on the defense, more takeaways. The interception, as we kind of mentioned, but the Packers defense leads the NFL in takeaways with 12. 8 interceptions and 4 fumbles. And the turnover differential, they also lead the NFL, Packers do, with a +6. So the defense is suddenly getting these turnovers that they didn't get last year, which is, I think, keeping them more in games as well.
One thought on the defense. And yeah, Aaron Jones for Minnesota had a big day. He had 93 yards on the ground, 46 yards receiving, but they kept him out of the end zone. And I almost feel like with some of the commentary that came out of the game, is that's what the defense wanted, was to keep Aaron Jones out of the end zone. Well, you did, but at what cost? Were they keying too much on Aaron Jones? He still had a big day. He still had a terrific game at Lambeau Field, and good for him, because he found a spot. He's in a system that's going to work for him. But again, when we look at the foibles of the defense in this game, were they worried too much about Aaron Jones?
Well, I think this again goes back to what portion of the game. And one of the things that we always loved about Aaron Jones was his ability to get a lot of yards at the end of the game when the defense was tired. Well, guess what happened in the fourth quarter for Aaron Jones? 7 rushes for only 18 yards in that fourth quarter. So he did not kill us at the end when they would have the chance to put the game away. They did not put the game away. And a large portion of why they did not put the game away is because they could not advance the ball on the ground.
It's funny you say that, because Jeff, you were asking earlier too about, did they just kind of get complacent in the second half? I do feel that it did look like this Minnesota offense was fatigued. Something about it. Maybe they just put up too many yards in the first half, or something about it. And it could be a combination of things. There could be the mental, hey, we got 28 points, we can cruise. And then they got tired because maybe they got pushed around a little bit and things like that. It was noticeable. Definitely that fourth quarter, those numbers that you put up, Neil, I think it was noticeable. And I think that the Minnesota Vikings feel that that's something that they're going to have to address to be able to play 4 quarters of football.
Or they just, once the Packers started scoring or moving the ball, not at will, but and if the turnovers wouldn't have occurred, I mean, maybe the Vikings offense, maybe they just puckered a little bit too. Maybe they got a little concerned that, okay, that we've got to keep scoring on these guys. And they, at that point, they couldn't, and whether they got conservative or whatever. But I still want to go back, maybe positive again, to the Packer offense. These explosive plays, just literally moving the ball up and down. Once Jordan Love again got comfortable, the positive takeaway is that this offense is almost unstoppable unless they stop themselves. And that's going into the Rams game, and a team that's hurt. And
but the problem is they are really good at stopping themselves.
Yes. But
you got to give a little credit to the Vikings defense. This Vikings defense through the first 3 games has played really well. Brian Flores has put that defense together, and that defense did very well, definitely in the first quarter for sure, and even through most of the first half. You can't put it on the defense, the muff punt, right? So that first half of that Minnesota defense is pretty spectacular still. Something happened at halftime. We did make the adjustments. We figured it out.
Mhm.
Now the question is, do we have the tape? Do we have the knowledge that next time we see Minnesota in Minnesota, that they're going to be able to play better against that Brian Flores defense?
In the first half, despite the Vikings defense playing fairly decently, we still were moving the ball and moving it within field goal range. Unfortunately, in field goal range, at least in this game, meant no points.
It's a different definition on a windy day, I think. And just Braden Narvison didn't look himself. He didn't look like he had that confidence. Maybe he did on the first kick, but that first kick that hit off the upright just rattled him on the next one.
John, why do you think that Braden Narvison didn't look like himself rather than that is who Braden Narvison is?
Oh, okay.
Braden Narvison's missed 37-yard field goal is the only missed field goal in the entire NFL this year below 40 yards.
Mm.
The Packers should have been down 7-3 at the worst at the end of the Packers' first drive. And I think that as much as anything, when we talk about what went wrong in that first half, the fact that we had opportunities and could not convert on those opportunities in the first half is the story of the game as much as anything else. Because, oh, by the way, we lost by 2 points and we missed 3 points just on that first drive.
Well, in addition to that, so then he goes ahead and misses the second field goal. So after that, potentially, and this is where things, I think maybe the coaching staff maybe lost confidence. So, Neil, we were in field goal range a couple of additional times, but instead chose to go for it, correct?
In the second quarter and then later in the second half, we had a 4th and 10 that would have been a 51-yard field goal attempt that we went for it on 4th and 10, despite kicking a field goal that is about a 50% field goal chance in the NFL. And the second half was the same thing. We had a 4th and 8 at the Minnesota 32, would have been a 49 field goal attempt. We didn't go after that. We had 2 missed field goals and 2 times that was 4th and long in field goal range that we chose not to kick the field goal. That's 12 points that we missed just based on that, whether it's the kicker missing directly or the lack of confidence in our kicker doing anything. And that's a problem. That's a serious problem as far as the team. We mentioned at the beginning of the year that we thought that there was a possibility that we might lose a game or two because of our kicker. And I can't say that I can go so far as say this was exclusively on the kicker because there were plenty of other errors, but it was a 2-point game and we left 4 field goals on the field, essentially 2 by missed and 2 by just going for a 4th and long.
So, Neil, was it totally Narvison's fault, or there was other things that led up to maybe making the kicks a little more difficult, wasn't there?
First of all, yes, it was Narvison's fault, but we didn't do him any justice. On that first Packers drive, we had a 3rd and 8 at the Minnesota 14, and then Jenkins had a false start that made it to the 19. And guess what? If it doinks off the upright, those 5 yards are going to make a difference. The second missed field goal, we started out with a 2nd and 8 at the Minnesota 21, took a 10-yard sack and then incompletion on 3rd and 18, such that the missed field goal on a 4th and 18 from the Minnesota 41 was 10 yards further behind where we had been previously on that drive. And the 2 drives also where we didn't even attempt a field goal that would have been normally field goal range, it was something similar. Near the end of the first half, we had a 1st and 10 at the Minnesota 34, and we went incomplete, 3 plays in a row. We did not have plays that were effective in moving that ball forward, and that obviously in the context of the previous missed kicks played a role. And then in that third quarter on the Packers' third drive, we got to a 1st and 10 at the Minnesota 34. We made it down on a 23-yard run to the Minnesota 11, except Tucker Kraft had a holding penalty there that was really critical. That moved us back such that we ended up not trying to kick the field goal, 4th and 8 from the Minnesota 32. So there were negative plays on every single one of those drives that we did not get a field goal. And we've got to stop those negative plays if we're going to move forward as a team the way we need to move forward.
The early penalties, I mean, we were on pace for a record number of penalties. That first quarter was brutal. Now, whether the refs decided, hey, we're going to call this a little easier or something, I don't know, because the penalties just sort of melted away for the Packers at that point. I mean, having 6 in the first quarter alone. So then suddenly the rest of the game, it wasn't as bad, but they were critical penalties. And again, that just cannot continue.
The other thing, though, is that the defense allowed long conversions for the Vikings on a number of drives that allowed them to extend drives. And it wasn't just in that first half. In the third quarter on the Vikings' first drive, Minnesota had a 3rd and 10 at their own 18, and we allow a 21-yard pass to Addison, and the wheels came off. The next two plays were a 16-yard run for Jones and then a 12-yard scramble for Sam Darnold. And it was this combination of making a bad play on defense and then allowing multiple bad plays to be stacked on top of it that indicated that maybe this was more of a problem. And I'm going to go back to what you said, that they got complacent. And there were a couple of situations where the Vikings absolutely should have scored more points in the second half. And I'm not entirely sure it was due to great defense as much as the Vikings just not putting the pedal to the metal.
That's probably enough of the negative side of things. We said we wanted to stay positive here. So now Green Bay walks away from this game with a 2-2 record. What do they take from this moving forward? What's going to happen in Los Angeles? How are we going to do? Then coming back from that, we got 2 nice home games in a row. I see a lot of things, Neil, and you've already touched on it. A lot of things that this offense can build on. And this defense really just needs to start from the beginning with the foot on the pedal. And let's get that Halfley defense running.
The other thing we need Jair Alexander on the field. I think that was clearly one of the biggest factors for our defense getting overrun in the game. And you go back to that lack of passes defended, and I have a feeling that the results for those D-backs looks very different if Jair is on the field. So we have that combination of Jair and McKinney and whoever else is capable of contributing to that defense in the backfield. And we just need Jair back. I think that's going to fix a lot of things that are ailing us.
Yeah, it really showed that he is the leader back there on defense. And without that leader, things didn't go very well.
All right, Jeff, can I slide into tailgating here? Because let's talk about the fun part of the day. It was a beautiful day in Green Bay. And yes, gold package game, doesn't matter. Milwaukee fans, we want you there early. That's all I ask. Get there early. And we're going to have a great day tailgating. And there were fans that were there early. The first international fans that came through were from Winnipeg. The fan there, Eli, is from the Canadian Air Force. He gave us a sticker for the bar. Our German friends, Neil, from Nashville, made their way through. There were some other Germans that were there, so we were happy to introduce them. I didn't eavesdrop, but I believe that Tobias and Florian were talking German with them as well throughout the tailgating. But the picture that we have here, these are guys that I met in 2019. Now, if I said they came from Trempealeau County, could you put Trempealeau County on a map in the state of Wisconsin? I just always say they're from La Crosse because they're in the La Crosse area. So these guys, and it's Ike and Reed and Nick. In 2019, I pull up to my parking spot on Liberty Street by the Moravian Church, and this car is pulled up, and these guys get out. They had a 4th guy with them at the time as well. And I get out, I'm putting on my Bobby Dillon jersey, and I've got my 12-pack of Pabst, and I see that they're drinking Miller Lite. And I said, you guys need some good beers, have some of the nectar of the gods there. And this is the 2019 season before Bobby Dillon was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the reason that I got the jersey, and I told them the tale of Bobby Dillon. And they loved it. And I said, well, when you guys are done hanging out here, find me in lot 1. And they did. They came by. They had a blast. They loved it. Next year is 2020. We don't have any tailgating. 2021, they come back around and they're like, John, they spotted my Bobby Dillon jersey. It was great. Loved it. They came back. 2022, they find us in lot 9. Awesome. Last year, they come back. And after they came through last year, I will admit, when they came through last year, I was drunk off my ass, so I barely remember them coming through. And I forgot to talk to them about the podcast. And I've literally been thinking about it every game since then. Like, oh, I hope the La Crosse guys come back. I hope they come back. And they typically have been coming to cold weather games. So for them to show up on Sunday was a surprise. I was talking to my friend, also named John, the other John, standing there talking to him. And Ike comes up and, kind of hit you on the back and like, holy cow, you guys are here. And it was great. I said, well, we're already out of the PBR for the day. But I got to tell them, I said, all right, I forgot to tell you guys, follow the podcast. They and their girlfriends there all follow us on Instagram now, which is great. So I hope they listen to the podcast and hear this tale, because what great loyalty from these guys. And it all comes down to saying hi, telling a great Packer story, sharing a couple of beers, and they come back because it's a great fucking tailgate party as well. And it's people like that come through to the tailgate party and make it a great party. So thanks to those guys for coming. Thanks to you guys whenever you come around as well. But what a great day for tailgating. It was great to see these guys again. So I'm happy to put their picture up in the podcast.
Of course, we always win the tailgate, but John, you did not have a beer at the beginning of the episode, and that tells me that all the beer was consumed at the tailgate as well. So
I also told them, let me know the next time they're coming to the game, because I'll get the 30-pack of Pabst rather than the 12-pack, so that there's plenty left over when they get there.
Solid advice, John. Solid advice.
All right. Speaking of tailgating, we have a tailgating Packer fan that we met at the home opener in week 2. Her name is Cecilia. She lives in Southern California. She's going to be our, so to speak, correspondent going into the Rams game, and she is our guest on the GBC podcast. Cecilia, say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. I am drinking sparkling ice with electrolytes, so very fun.
All right. The electrolytes are important. You're in sunny Southern California, and you are a Packers fan. We met you a couple of weeks ago in week 2 when you were in Green Bay. You said you've been to Green Bay a few times, and we'll talk about that. But you're originally from Colombia.
I am.
And you now live in San Diego. How in the world did you become a Packer fan?
So it's a very random story, but also very cool. You can really make it up. I went straight from Colombia to college in the Midwest in Mankato, Minnesota area. So
did you lose a bet?
Kind of threw a dart in the map. No, it was kind of a situation when I just had an opportunity to go, and I really had nothing to lose. So I just decided to go, and if I didn't like it, I was gonna go back. But I liked it. I got used to it, and here we are. So,
but how did you become a Packer fan there?
Yeah, so I went to this really small private school in Minnesota, and I just fell into this group of Packer fans. I didn't know anything about football. I barely understood it, actually. But I do come from a very strong sports culture in Colombia, in South America, with soccer. We're very into sports. It's a big part of our lives and our culture. So I did have that sports background. So I started watching with my friends, and they were all from Wisconsin. They were all Packer fans. So I just kind of got really into it and became a really big fan. And now here we are.
Now, this is a really important question, Cecilia, and one of us is going to judge you on your answer.
Okay.
Who is your soccer team?
Ooh. Okay, so in Colombia, I have a team since I was a kid, Nacional from Medellin, always. But in Europe, I flip-flop, I won't lie. Right now I'm a Liverpool fan because they have a really good Colombian player. I'm sorry.
Who's the player with Liverpool? That
Luis Diaz. So we share a last name. We're not related.
No relation? Okay.
I wish. Yeah, so it's just where it's fun to watch. I watch Man City, Man United. I like Man United when I was a kid. That was like my childhood team.
You should become an Arsenal fan, though.
No, that's not on the list. But I do watch them when they're good.
Okay. At least you watch them from time to time. You watch them when they're playing Liverpool, right?
Yeah, I do.
Well, one of the things that Neil comes back to, the reason he likes Arsenal is because I guess we would call it the working class nature of the fan club, that throughout the United States, he's found fan clubs wherever he goes. And when we go to road games for the Packers, we find the Arsenal bar. But using that same analogy, and you're in Southern California now, what are you finding as the Packer culture like in Southern California?
It's huge. It's really huge. We have a lot of bars. I found a Packer bar the first game that I lived here to go watch. And I've met so many people just through the Packer bar, through the games. There's different groups. There's always tailgates when they come anywhere close. There's people going in groups, even when they come to like Arizona or Vegas. It's a very, very big culture. It's not necessarily people from Wisconsin. It's some people that have never even been to Wisconsin, some people that from other countries like me. It's very, very diverse. It's just a team that captivates people's attention and the history of it. And a lot of people grew up watching when they were kids. So it's just different walks of life and they all come together. Very big in Southern California.
Do you want to put a pitch in for your bar? Do you want to, so that if we ever get down to Southern California, where we're supposed to go?
Yeah, so it's called Mavericks Beach Club. It's in Pacific Beach area of San Diego, right 2 blocks away from the beach. It's really
okay.
It's really fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Now you're planning on going to the game in Los Angeles against the Rams. Have you been to SoFi Stadium?
I have been, but for concerts. I haven't been for games yet.
Okay.
Did you go to a Taylor Swift concert there, perchance?
No, I went to Luke Combs concert.
Okay.
It was
Fair
great.
enough. Neil's a big Taylor Swift fan too, by the
Oh,
way.
I wish I know. I want to see her. It's like a bucket list item for everyone.
Now, are you going with a group of people? Or do you
Yeah.
have plans? Like what kind of tailgating, pre-gaming plans are going on in Los Angeles this week?
Yeah, so it's the same group from the bar that normally gets together. So we all got together and they got a bus. So we're
Okay.
taking all the bus all together. It's only a 2-hour drive from San Diego. It's not very far. So we'll just go early in the morning. We got a spot to tailgates and we hang out there. It's a 1 p.m. game for me, 3 p.m. for you. So it's not too early. So we'll go there early in the morning, stay tailgate the morning, and then come back to San Diego the same night. But we did get a bus to all go together.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It is. We did it for the time that was last time they played the Chargers in 2019, I think it was, in that little soccer stadium.
Oh, you were at one of those games.
Yeah, I was.
Okay. There was like
Yeah,
28,000 people there, right? Or something.
yeah.
It was pretty small.
And
Yeah.
the Packers lost like 2 games that year, and that was one of the games they lost.
Mhm.
So yeah, but yeah, it's always fun to go with a group and get everybody together.
Okay. And how many times have you been to Green Bay for a Packer game?
7, 8, 8, I think. I
Okay.
started going in 2016, and I've gone back pretty much every year since.
So your first time in 2016, were you still in school? Did you come with people from Minnesota?
No, I was already living here. I flew back
And you
up.
just
I was in
on
school
your own
first,
said, I'm
and
going to Green Bay.
yeah, I was just like, I need to like make my Lambo debut. I'm just gonna do it.
You said I'm from Columbia. Green Bay isn't going to scare me, and you went and
Oh
did it
no,
on
no,
your own.
no. I think I met up with some people from college that lives close there, so I wasn't
Okay.
alone.
So, being that you've been to Lambeau a number of times, what are some of your favorite things about traveling to Lambeau that you enjoy?
My favorite thing about Lambo is the history. Like I walk into that place and I just feel like so much has happened there because like holy ground, you know, like there's other stadiums like SoFi is beautiful. The Vegas Allegiant, I was there this summer, is beautiful, but like it doesn't have the historical element, you know. It's
Mhm.
just I just feel like I said, there's so much that's happened there. There's so many memories that have marked the history of a whole town. Some people's lives have been changed there. It's just that historical part is my favorite part. And like taking the tour and looking all the statues and the Hall of Fame, like all of that's something that no other team has.
This history is something that we've talked about a lot, and we all grew up together in Green Bay, and it almost seemed like something that was taken for granted when you were growing up as a kid in Green Bay. But like we all went to the same high school. Where we went to high school, our home football stadium was the home of the Packers from 1926 to 1956. That is, our high school football games were on an NFL stadium where the Packers won 6 NFL titles. And you thought about it a little bit, but I mean, John was just sort of amazed that we didn't make a bigger deal about it at the time.
We should have had, gold engraved in invitations or something to be allowed to play. They just said, here you go. You're 14 years old. You're a freshman. Go ahead. Go play on the field. What the hell? Yeah. But I would assume you did the tour in town. Did you go by East High School in the Old City Stadium?
I haven't taken the tour in a couple years.
Okay.
But
well, now you know what to look for.
Again. Yeah, I think next time I go, I'll take it again. It's been a couple years.
What about when people told you going to Green Bay, anything that you need to go to, like for food or drinks or where you stay? What sticks out to you about Green Bay?
I think it's just how the entire town is about the team. I really like that. Like everyone is involved. Everyone is like, I love how the houses are right next to a stadium. Again, something you don't even see in like South America and like our stadiums. Is just so unique in the world. And how the whole town comes together. I really like the bars after the game are really fun. And like last time I was there like a couple weeks ago when I met you, I just talked to so many strangers from all over the world. So it's just the community, most of it, how it's so unique because it's basically what the whole town revolves around. So I really like that.
You're present on social media, use Twitter, and I think that's how you connected with a lot of Packer fans.
I did.
And I know it started in 2016, but kind of comparing that to, say, 20 years ago even, do you think that online community kind of makes things even smaller, that it's easier for you to reach out and go and do something like that?
Oh, absolutely. I went to our Twitter tailgate for the first time this year. And then the last couple years, I went to the game also with Twitter friends. It's a very nice community because we all have this in common, but we're all so different. And like half the people in that tailgate had flown from different places. It was so like we look forward to this moment to get together, but we at the same time feel like we know each other because we've been talking on Twitter for like 6 years, you know? So
I think that's true. Neil, I would say that's especially true with Kate because we kind of found her on Twitter, found out what she was doing tailgating. We said, hey, you want to come on and be a guest? And she's been a guest on the show. And then we've been to her tailgate party, last year and this year. And we met up with her in Denver as well. It's amazing how you can do things like that. And you just have dived right in and you're doing the same thing.
And especially her, she's getting so many people together. Like shout out to Kate. She organizes the whole thing. She plans it, invites everybody. So it's been really cool to meet people through her too.
Do you think that it's easier to organize a party like that if you're a female as opposed to, some creepy middle-aged guy like Neil or me trying to organize it? Would we get as many young women coming to the tailgate party if it was us putting it together?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the fact that it's online, like if people talk to you in person, they will know you're normal.
Oh, that's good. Thank you, Cecilia.
You might have a point just reaching out.
My mom watches the show, so she'll be happy to hear that.
Yay.
So, Cecilia, what other Packer games have you been to besides in Southern California?
Yeah, so I've been to when the Chargers were still here. In San Diego, they came here. I've been to LA, but I've also been to Detroit a few times, Minneapolis, and Phoenix. I think that's it.
Okay.
That I've been to, yeah. So whatever is close. I try to go back to Lambeau once a year, and then whatever is close by here, I try to go. You have a lot of people I know in the Midwest from my college years, so Detroit was an easy one for me to just go meet up people.
Excellent. So with the whole bus trip now with this game and everything like that, do you have a prediction for this game? Kind of. So what are you hoping to see the Packers do against the Rams and so far?
I'm hoping they break the LA curse because the last couple times I've seen them in LA, they've lost. And they don't come very often. So I'm hoping I'm feeling good. I think we're gonna be okay. I don't know about a score prediction, but I'm excited to see Jordan Love because I didn't get to see him when we were in Green Bay for week 2. So that'll be fun. And just I don't know about a score, but I'm feeling good. I think we got a chance.
So looking for a win though, definitely.
Yeah, definitely looking for a win.
Fantastic.
So one other question, thinking about all those games you've been to, is there one epic game or epic moment that you've had in Packer games that you've gone to that sticks out in your memory?
Yes. So I have I have a lot actually, but that I can remember vividly 2022 in Lambeau against Dallas when we won with that last minute field goal. It was freezing and I was so cold and I was like, this is so worth it. I admit I have lost my cold tolerance. I am very Californian at this point. So it was like 30 degrees, but I was dying. But that field goal made me forget how cold it was. I was like, this is amazing. Nice. And then last year's home opener when we were down like 18-0 or 17-0 and we came back. So those are my two that really stick in my mind.
Speaking of that,
I've been a lot better in Lambeau than outside of Lambeau. So my best memories are there.
I asked these guys the same question I'll ask you. So watching the Vikings game this weekend, when the Packers started coming back, did you get kind of the same feelings from that Saints game last year in the comeback?
I did. I got a little too excited, I'll admit it. But it's okay. After the game was over, I wasn't that worried. At halftime, I was. After the game was over, I was like, all right, it's okay. Like, calm down.
So what's your prognosis for the rest of the season? Going into the season, did you say, hey, they're going to win X number of games, do this in the playoffs? Like, do you make predictions?
I don't like predictions because they scare me because I feel like I'm going to jinx them. I didn't like that so many like pundits and people on social media were picking them to go like to a Super Bowl. I was like, that's a curse. I hate that.
No. Guilty as charged.
I don't know. I'm just really paranoid because I've been hurt, I mean, we all have.
Yes.
Hey, we grew up in Green Bay in the 70s. Come on. We know heartbreak.
No, I think we're like reaching our peak. Like we're probably gonna peak at the right time and then hopefully things will go smoothly.
Well, and with a win this weekend, that would certainly help. So the last time the Packers beat the Rams in California was December 18th of 1966. So you're right.
Wow.
It's been a long time since they beat the Rams in California. So
I guess, yeah, right. There was a time where the Rams were in Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis. Boy, that seems long, even just by those standards.
That's older than all of us are, okay?
My goodness. I'm having a hard time believing that one, Jeff. Did you get that from the Crystal book, or where did you get that?
No, this was on the dope sheet.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Well, we can't disregard the dope sheet. There's no way to go against that because that is where everything is.
I think, though, that we have reasons to feel positive about playing the Rams this week. First of all, they just lost to Chicago.
Yeah.
They've obviously got plenty of injuries, but the overall numbers say that we are in good shape against this Rams team. Whether you choose going by yards, DVOA, offensive yards, Packers are third in the NFL in yards per game at 410 yards per game. You complain about how, we had games without Jordan Love, and Jordan Love hasn't been at his peak. We are third in the NFL in yards per game, seventh for passing yards per game, second in running yards per game. And guess what? You know what the Rams are particularly bad at?
Defense?
Running defense. The Rams are 31st in the NFL in run defense DVOA. So I think that we will be able to use the run to set up the pass. We'll be able to use the pass to set up the run. But we've got a lot of fundamental advantages. And I think the result of the Vikings game is going to make us hungry to beat the Rams. And we are going to get off that, what is a 58-year schneid in Southern California.
Yay.
You made him do math on the fly, Jeff. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Well, the thing that I look at there, Neil, is if Cecilia goes to this game and the Packers win, then it's a no-brainer that she just has to go to the rest of the games, because if she's there, they win.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, you guys, that's all it is. Crossing fingers. I'll sacrifice. I'll go to all the rest of the game.
All right, we've got that on record. We're going to hold you to it.
Right, the dream.
Any thought in your mind of coming to Green Bay for the NFL draft in April?
I was thinking about it. I have to figure out, logistics, but I was thinking about it. I might. I'll decide at some point, but it's not ruled out.
Okay.
You've got friends to stay with. I think that's the most
I
important
do.
thing,
I usually stay with a friend in Appleton, so I have to check with her and everything, and that helps a lot to have people there. So yeah, I might.
It's good to live close by.
Right. I know, you guys.
Well, that's something to look forward to. But let's take a look at the short term. We do have a 2-2 team looking to get a win in Los Angeles. Like I said earlier, come back then for 2 nice home games against Arizona and Houston. Final thoughts, gentlemen?
So this will be the Packers' first trip to SoFi Stadium, and this will be the 100th meeting between the Packers and the Rams. Packers have a slight advantage, wins. What we're hoping for here is a win in Southern California, as we've discussed here, kind of get off the schneid, a trip to this beautiful stadium, and where hopefully there'll be a nice contingent of Packer fans, certainly some arriving by bus earlier in the day here in Cecilia. So a win against the Rams at SoFi in Southern California, and kind of a jump start, which is hopefully going to be a long string of wins coming up. Go Pack, go.
When we talked about what we thought the strengths of this Packers defense were going to be this year, one of the things we said is we thought that rotation that we had in that front four was going to be a strength of the team. And unfortunately, to this point, that has not been true. We have not seen that level of commitment to taking down the quarterback. Now, we've faced running quarterbacks in these early games. Matthew Stafford is not a running quarterback. The Packers are actually 6th in the NFL with 49 pressures on the year. And the problem is that we are giving the opposing quarterback too much time to get his passes off. We're actually 31st in time allowed to the quarterback getting his passing. And Rashawn Gary in particular has been less than what we have expected from Rashawn Gary. And he's only got a pass rush win rate of 3%. This is an opportunity against this low mobility quarterback to not have to worry about just getting containing, but we can actually go after the quarterback, pin our ears back, and really have that front four make the impact that we expected that they were going to have on this year. This is one of the things I look forward to. I look forward to the team playing well. I look forward to them being motivated after not doing their best against the Vikings. This should be a fun game. Go Pack, go.
All right, Cecilia, since you're still with us, give us your final thoughts on this week.
I think we have a lot to look forward to, a lot to be excited about, and things we haven't seen yet. The season's young, and I think we're going to pick at the right time, like I said, and let's get that first win in LA in I don't know how many decades. So go Pack, go. And thanks for having me, guys.
Cecilia, if people want to follow you online, your handle on the screen there at Cecilia Diaz with a little underscore after it. You're on Twitter. Are you also on Instagram?
Instagram is Cecilia_Diaz.
Okay,
So,
what about
_.
TikTok or
TikTok
Snapchat?
is Cecilia Diaz, no spaces, no underscore.
All right, so people can find you. It's a common name, but I'm sure they'll be able to track you down. I hope you have a great time tailgating in Los Angeles on Sunday. I hope you get a chance to come back to Green Bay soon and tailgate with us again as well. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you for joining us. Everyone else, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave a comment. You can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. And on Facebook, it's the GBC podcast, Green Bay Chat. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Right.